My brother took over our family diner and banned me for stealing. The regulars knew the truth. You can't be in here, Maya. It's 12:15, the peak of the lunch rush, and my brother Jake is blocking the kitchen swinging doors of Lou's with his entire body. Lou's Diner. My dad's diner. My dad was Lou. 3 months ago, Jake printed a sign and taped it directly above the cash register. Employees only beyond this point. Right underneath it, he stood behind the counter and told every single regular in town that I was permanently banned because I stole $8,000 from the family safe. I didn't steal a dime. I was standing outside in the freezing rain with my plastic catering bin, looking through the neon-lit glass. I wasn't there to eat, and I wasn't there to fight. I came for my mom's apron. The faded blue one with the embroidered chili pepper on the pocket. Dad left it hanging in the back office when he died on the line 2 years ago, collapsing right there on the grease mats between the grill and the fryer. A massive heart attack. Jake was the one who found him. When Dad died, the will was simple, a 50-50 split. Jake manages the front of the house. I run the kitchen. That had been the unspoken deal since I was 12 years old peeling potatoes on a milk crate after school. I have permanent burn scars on my left forearm shaped exactly like the edge of his flat-top grill. What actually happened 3 months ago was that Jake started spending his afternoons at the video poker terminals in the back of the gas station on Route 9. I found the printed ATM receipts and cash-out slips buried in the office trash can. $500 here, $1,000 there, $2,000 on a Tuesday. Over a month, the register drawer started coming up short. $300 missing. Then $800. When the missing cash perfectly hit the $8,000 mark, the exact amount a local bookie had been calling the diner office looking for, I confronted him. I told him we were going to lose Dad's legacy if he didn't get help. The very next morning, he called our Aunt Susan, our cousins, and half the regulars in town, claiming he did an overnight audit and caught me bleeding the diner dry to fund my delusional, failing catering dream. No one asked for my side of the story. In a small, loyal town, if Lou's oldest son says it with tears in his eyes, it becomes the absolute truth. But today, I needed that apron. I had a catering gig for a small wedding tomorrow, my first real job since I was publicly humiliated and banned from my own kitchen, and my good apron had ripped. I pushed the front door open. The diner went entirely quiet, except for the ticket printer on the pass. It was screaming. Zip, 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 lunch tickets spitting out onto the metal rail in a long white tail. Mrs. Henderson was sitting at table 2. Mr. Patel was at table 4. The entire County Road crew was crowded into booth 6. Every single one of them stopped chewing and stared at me. I just need Mom's apron from the office, I said, keeping my voice completely steady. 30 seconds. I won't touch anything else. Jake didn't move an inch. He is 2 years older than me and a foot wider now. When we were kids, he used to put me on his shoulders just so I could reach to change the kitchen light bulbs. Now, his face was red, his jaw tight. You're not coming back here to steal more shit, he said, projecting his voice loud enough for the road crew at table 6 to hear clearly. I felt the heat rush to my face. The old version of me, the sister who kept the peace, would have turned around and walked back out into the ring. But the new me, the one who had to file for bankruptcy just to buy her own cooking knives after being locked out of her own family's business, held her ground. I didn't steal anything, Jake, I said quietly, looking right into his bloodshot eyes. And we both know exactly where that $8,000 went on Route 9. That did it. Jake didn't freeze, and he didn't retreat. He completely blew apart. He reached out, grabbed the metal ticket rail right off the kitchen pass, and ripped it out of the screws. Aluminum tickets went flying across the black and white tile. I saved this place, he screamed, his voice cracking violently. You come in here on my lunch rush to judge me? You think you're Dad. He grabbed a heavy stack of ceramic plates from the server station and hurled them into the metal dish pit. They shattered with a deafening crash. Half the diner jumped in their seats. This is MY Diner, he yelled, pacing behind the counter, sweating through his uniform shirt, his fingers shaking as he pointed it at my chest. I was here when he died. I held him while he choked on his own breath on this filthy floor. Where were you? You were playing chef at your cute little farmer's market. I was at the farmer's market because he had told me to go sell the extra soup that morning. Mrs. Henderson slowly stood up from her booth, clutching her purse. Jake couldn't stop. The pressure of the lies, the debt, and the guilt violently boiled over. I earned every damn cent in that drawer, he screamed, pounding his fist on the register so hard the bell rang. Dad left me a mountain of hidden bills, and you were too blind to see it. You think those poker machines were a joke? I was trying to win it back. For us. For the diner. I took what I was owed because you were always going to leave me here to drown. He stepped closer to the counter, leaning over it, his eyes wide and cruel, and delivered the one sentence he knew would gut me. Dad always knew you'd bail on us. That's why he made me the manager. He knew you were just a tourist in his kitchen. The heavy silence that followed was suffocating. The only sound in the entire building was the rhythmic zip, zip, zip of the ticket printer still spitting out orders. Nobody moved. He hadn't pulled out a ledger, and nobody had cornered him with evidence. He had simply been holding a toxic, heavy lie for 3 months. And the moment he was pressed, his own rage and entitlement forced him to vomit the truth all over his own floor. He took the money to feed the machines, convinced himself he deserved it, and blamed me to cover his tracks. Jake realized what he had just screamed a second too late. The adrenaline drained out of him. He looked around the dining room at the faces of the people who had known him since he was in diapers. Mr. Patel slowly picked up his napkin, wiped his mouth, and placed his fork down on his plate. "Jake," Mrs. Henderson said, her voice shaking but crystal clear in the quiet room. "Lou would be so incredibly ashamed of you." Jake didn't apologize. He didn't break down crying and ask for forgiveness. He just stared at the broken plates, turned around, kicked the heavy plastic trash can across the kitchen, walked into the back office, and slammed the door as hard as he could. I stood there in the middle of my dad's diner with shards of ceramic resting against my wet shoes. I walked behind the counter, stepping over the mess, and pushed the office door open. Jake was sitting on the floor in the dark, his back against Dad's old filing cabinet, his head buried in his hands. I didn't say a single word to him. I just reached up, took my mom's blue apron off the coat hook, folded it carefully over my arm, and walked back out. When I came back into the dining room, Lou's was emptying out. It wasn't a dramatic movie scene where everyone stands up and claps for the hero. It was an awkward, heartbreaking, painful reality. The road crew at table 6 left their food half-eaten on the table and quietly shuffled out the door. Mr. Patel slid a $20 bill under his coffee cup and walked out without looking toward the kitchen. I pushed the glass door open with my hip and walked back out into the cold air. The next morning, 6 a.m., the sun was just starting to break over the trees, casting a long golden light across the gravel parking lot of the county feed store. I was standing inside my beat-up, secondhand food truck, the one I had drained the very last of my savings to buy. The metal was cold, the space was cramped, and it smelled like old cooking oil and bleach, but it was mine. I stood in front of the small prep counter and tied my mom's blue apron around my waist, tracing the embroidered chili pepper with my thumb. My cell phone vibrated on the stainless steel prep table. The caller ID flashed Aunt Susan. She had left 3 voicemails since midnight. The regulars had talked. The entire town already knew. I didn't answer it. I didn't need to hear her apologies, and I didn't need to listen to my family backtrack. I reached over, flipped the phone over on its face, and turned the heavy brass knob on my propane tank. Through the small serving window, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel. I looked up. Mrs. Henderson's tan Buick pulled into the empty lot and parked. A second later, Mr. Patel's pickup truck pulled in right next to her. They didn't come to talk about my brother, and they didn't come to offer pity. They got out of their cars, walked up to my service window, and stood in the crisp morning air. Mrs. Henderson looked up at me, pulled a crumpled $5 bill out of her purse, and smiled. "You better have chili in there today, Maya," she said warmly. "And I want extra onions." I looked at her, my vision blurring slightly with hot tears, and nodded. Not tears of grief, and not tears of anger. For the first time in 3 agonizing months, I didn't have to defend my name, and I didn't have to carry the weight of my brother's sins. I turned around, grabbed my favorite knife, and struck a match to light the heavy iron burners.